Hey, Joanna, welcome to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Are you ready to talk about sharks and everything that is related to marine science?
I'm very ready. Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Uh,
Lovely to have you on.
well, we're really excited today on today's Beyond Jaws podcast. We have an absolutely amazing guest. We have Dr. Joanna Alfaro-Shigeto from Peru, who's one of the hardest working and most accomplished marine scientists and researchers I know of. And believe me, I know a lot of people. Joanna did her bachelor's of science degree in biology from the University of Ricardo Palma, and she did her PhD at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom in biology. Early in her career, Joanna worked at Imarpar, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but it's a Peruvian fisheries agency as a marine mammal coordinator. And then in 1995, she co-founded an NGO called Pro Delphinus, which focused initially on marine mammals, but has since extended on to other marine species, including seabirds, sharks, sea turtles, and marine otters. And to this day, she still serves as a president. In 2001, she was a global fellow at Duke University's Marine Laboratory. In 2012, she received the prestigious Whitley Award for Nature from Princess Anne in London. 2015, she received the Marsh Award for Marine Conservation Leadership in Latin America. In 2016, she became president of the International Sea Turtle Society. She's also a member of the IUCN SARC's specialist groups for sea turtles, otters, cetaceans, cygnathids, which are seahorses, pipefish, and sea dragon. And she's also on the IUCN Shark Specialist Group. In 2020, she received the Carlos Ponce Conservation Award in the Architect of Conservation uh, category. And when the award is given in recognition of people whose work promotes the conservation of natural areas and biodiversity in Peru. Her former supervisor, Professor Brendan Godley at the University of Exeter, said upon her receiving the award that her work has been transformational and truly world leading in forging sustainable livelihoods for poor coastal communities whilst promoting biodiversity and conservation. Joanna has authored over 100 peer reviewed publications on Peruvian aquatic biodiversity in collaboration with an amazing number of international people in the research community, including myself. I've actually had the privilege of doing 3 papers with her to date. She's also a faculty member at the University Scientifica del Sur, where she continues to mentor a new generation of young Peruvian marine researchers. And she also co-advises master's students at Exeter University in the conservation program. Her research focuses on marine conservation and in small-scale fisheries. And with that, Joanna, welcome to the show.
Probably our
Thank you so
longest
much.
intro ever.
I had to cut down on that one. I had to give a summary of all the stuff. I'd be going on for another 10 minutes of all of her amazing
Come on.
accomplishments.
Come on.
Love
It's
it. Love it.
incredible. Uh, well, welcome to the show, Joanna. So our first question we always ask our guests is, how did you get interested in marine science in the field?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me tonight. Thank you for your patience for this interview. And to your first question, I am from, like I've been in the business for over 30 years. So I started when there wasn't internet, there wasn't TikTok, there wasn't Facebook. So I got to love biology and animals from books, in particular from dictionaries. Dictionaries in the
Mm.
past used to come with plates with animals. And like every night, my dad would come from work, and with my brother, we will sit with him and just gave the list of the weirdest animals we saw from the dictionary plates. And that was a lot of fun. And I always wanted to know everything about the most strangest creatures, birds of paradise, for example. I haven't seen one in my life, but I know everything about them from books. So it's just an example how books have been so wonderful in my life. Yeah.
Mhm. So, so you got at an early age, you had this passion, this interest in marine and in science in general. And so, where did you, when you went to school and stuff, how did you plan? Did you have any plans for how you're gonna, when you're going through school, high school, and then into college? Did you have any plans on how you were going to pursue that this dream?
Um, I was born in Lima. Lima is one of the very few cities or capital cities in South America that are right by the ocean. So every summer we will go with all my cousins. My mom will drive us to the beach. And that was like maybe 20 minutes ride. So every morning during our 3 months of holidays, we will go and sit at the beach and have a wonderful summer vacation. So I got to love the beach, beach waves. Not that I'm a surfer or a diver even, but I just like to sit in the beach and watch the ocean. So I think that's what when I got really engaged with just looking at the ocean, looking at the waves, um, just admiring the how immense the ocean can be and how little I will feel sometimes. So that I think that was inspiring for me. So when I finished high school, I really enjoyed the course of biology. So I studied biology at that time at Ricardo Palma, and I got really good teachers that took me to trips field trips with a lot of mud, a lot of bugs, all the good stuff that biology we all love.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to really enjoy the field. I think I have learned to cope with rough conditions in the field, and it makes me feel good that I am able to cope working in those conditions. And along the years, I guess something that has been a great addition to my work has been getting to know the people that is related to the ocean in the different ways that I relate to it. I mean, fishermen, for example, they live from the ocean. They depend on them for work, for food. So just learning from them and getting to know them has really been an inspiring process of combining a passion for the ocean, for the animals, and for the people that are related to them.
Did you when you went to you did your bachelor's degree and after your bachelor's degree you went to work for the MRP, which is the did
Hmm.
you was that sort of your first job after you finished your biology degree?
Shall I talk about my first job?
Sure.
Oh, well, my first job I was a unique. Real job in biology, I guess, was with Imarpe. Imarpe, it's the government. It's an office from the government in Peru. So my work for 2 years was going in cruises, research cruises,
Hmm.
and my work was amazing. I mean, I have the best memories about working there. I would sit in a metal barrel because they didn't have my program, so I was building a program, right? So we didn't have, a lot of things. We didn't have much. We had binoculars. We have a metal barrel for oil, and I will put a chair on it, and I will sit there and watch cetaceans all day long. during daylight hours, and at night I will go and learn from what other people was doing. So it was a lot of fun. I saw a lot of cool, weird animals. Amazing landscapes. You name it. I mean, I couldn't go into details, but I saw a lot of marine life from those vessels. And so I will spend months traveling in those cruises.
And and you're working on marine mammals at this time?
Yes. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I said, did they, I was gonna say, did they, was that something you chose or that was just something they assigned to you?
Oh no, I was like one of those people that was in love with dolphins and whales.
Oh, whale hugger. You're a whale hugger is what you're telling us.
Yeah, my I had a fixation with dolphins and whales and marine mammals was my thing back then.
What
Okay.
what what was it about marine mammals that you wanted to study?
At that time, probably I wanted
Hmm.
to study behavior.
Behavior.
Yeah, and little I know, I learned from somebody from uni that there was a group that work on marine mammals. So I joined that group as a volunteer. That was probably my first volunteer position. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be swimming with dolphins, and the things that you
Yeah.
think are
Right.
are real. And I went to work with them, and they asked me to clean skulls, go and measure dead dolphins in the fishing port. I mean, all the things that I did not plan for. But it
It
was
was a bit
cool.
of a
I
wake up
mean,
call, I guess.
exactly. Yes, like wake up, person. This is not. Is I mean, swimming with dolphins is not a thing. Yeah,
so,
but it was
so,
so
fun.
so, you-
so going fast forwarding
go
to
ahead.
that, like when you mentioned like this is what you first wanted to do, is study behavior. You've studied them for quite some time on and off throughout your career, and we'll get into other things that you've studied. What are the major questions now that you have about marine mammals that you want to find out more about?
Well, right now, I would like to know population numbers, like numbers of certain
Mm,
populations in Peru, for example. There's a couple of species that are of a lot of interest because they are subject for of bycatch, like high rates of bycatch.
mm,
For example, there's a purpose that is very very similar to the vaquita that is almost extinct in Mexico, and this purpose lives in Peru, Chile, and perhaps a little bit of Argentina. But it's a species that is really vulnerable. The fisheries is a coastal species, but there's no numbers. There's no numbers of how much this population can stand of incidental fisheries. So that'll be a very useful number to have, and the same for a couple of other species of dolphins. So yes, I mean it takes some time to land real questions, perhaps when you are a very young person. It takes experience. It takes a lot of listening or learning from a lot of people
mhm.
that have much more experience than you. But also, I guess, to be willing to learn. And I have found fantastic people in Peru that would share knowledge with me. So I appreciate that every
What
day.
is is that what kind of inspired you to start your Pro Delphinus society organization?
Well, it I didn't started it. It was this group CEPEC is called. CEPEC started is this group that work with marine mammals, with dolphins specifically, and they had me as a volunteer, and then they started a campaign in 19 towards the end of the 90s, because the bycatch of dolphins was very high in Peru, and uh, the meat of dolphins is used for human consumption. Um, so they started a campaign, but they needed, and they are very focused on science. I mean, they didn't do outreach or education. It wasn't their thing. So they needed a branch that would do that without um, annoying the researchers. So that they created Prodolfinus. So I was a volunteer when Prodolfinus started, and then with time I was able to grow into that group and to help Prodolfinus take off a little bit. Um, so it was. I grew with Prodolfinus, definitely.
And you're still the president of the organization now.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
the president, the person that cleans, the person that carries stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you expanded now. You do other besides just marine mammals. You do sea turtles, sharks, like megafauna type, marine megafauna type.
Yeah, because when we started the work, we were focused on dolphins, but we will go to visit fishing ports, and they will bring leatherback turtles, green turtles, penguins, cormorants, of course sharks and rays. So it was obvious to us to start recording everything. We wanted to know the dolphins, but it was, you can't go blind and um, like ditch or ignore the other
Hmm.
animals. So it made sense to understand more of what was happening with other taxa, and also expanded it into the fish, the target fish. Right now, we have projects with dolphin fish, for example, that is a target fishery, or giant squid or octopus. So little by little, we expanded to have. I think it helped us to understand the whole problem. I don't know, problem is a word, but the whole situation, I guess, no, including the people that work in these fisheries. So it happened very organically, and now it's like we see that the usefulness of understanding the whole fishery, not just pieces.
Mhm. Now you went to work. So after you left a Marpe, you were volunteering initially at Pro Delphinus, and then at some point you ended up going to the UK to do your PhD. How how did that all come about?
I think it was important. I mean, while I really enjoy working with Prodefinus or at the university, it was really important always to for me to grow personally, like professionally. So while I will do my volunteering or my whatever field trips or stuff, I will always have in the back of my mind, I want to keep my education. So the my advisor, Brendan Godley, he's like the best advisor in the world. He's a big turtle person. So in a turtle meeting, we I got to talk to him. My husband Jeff, who I work with, he was also in the stage in the career where it's important to grow professionally. So it made sense for us to talk to Brendan, and he was keen enough, and he took us under his wing as his PhD students, and
So
we love Brendan. We still work with him, so and yeah, it worked very well for us.
so so you and Jeff, your husband, both went to work your PhDs at the same time with Brendan.
I know. Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
but
You
it's
said it. I won't.
true.
Oh boy, that must have been fun. so, um, so, but you've since that time though you obviously have a very you've kept a very good working relationship there, and you're still like a research or adjunct faculty with Exeter now.
Yeah, I'm still a associated researcher. We still do projects with Brendan or with people from the lab, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very cool. And we receive students from the master's program in Exeter. Um, and sometimes we'll cross paths again with students that we had in the past and the current, I mean, and their lives as professionals, young professionals, which is really amazing. And I feel very proud of them, and happy to see them now as colleagues more than advisors or supervisors.
Mm-hmm. So how is it? We have people on the show that like they went and did like a PhD or something in a different country, and so how is that for you going to a different country like that to live? How is that? How is that for you?
Oh man, it was, well, I was fascinated. I always wanted to study in the UK, always. Um, and finding Brendan and he accepting us as students. It was really amazing. It was very hard for me to understand the accent. So I remember clearly every session we will have with Brendan, he will, and he's writing. He does these scribbles that you don't know what he's writing. And every time we finish a meeting, I will go to Jeff and say, "What did he say? What did he say to me that I have to do?" But it was the over that. I mean, after that, the getting adjusted to the accent. Everything went really well. I really like the university. I think there's amazing people there, and they are very open to collaborate, and they are very supportive. I think to international students, which was very nice for people like me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, especially because you also had a language. Do you speak English very much before you went there? Or?
Mm, you know what? I think it helped a lot that I went to a nun schools with nuns that were
Mm.
Canadian nuns. So we will have
Okay.
one day English, one day Spanish when we were littles. And then I got to use it more with Jeff, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
at Duke or at conferences, and then
Good.
definitely at my during my
Good.
PhD. Yeah, writing in English, it wasn't very good for me. It wasn't that it didn't happen very smooth. I don't know if you are aware, but in Latin America we write a lot. No, we use a lot of words. We can go forever for something that you can in English you will write in a sentence. We probably will write a paragraph.
Very descriptive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what is it, but and then I learned, and Jeff has been very good at it, saying,
Mm-hmm.
"What do you mean in this paragraph?" And I would say what I wanted to say, and he said, "Well, this paragraph is not saying what you just told me." So it has been a learning process. I'm still learning.
So
So
it's
learning.
interesting you mentioned that because scientific writing is very to the point, and this is the fact, and that's what you do. Do you find that scientific writing in Spanish, like in South America, would be the same as English, or do you find there's a difference? Like, is it more to the point for scientific writing in, like, say, for a journal in Spanish than it would be if you were regularly writing?
It's I think it's a little tough for. I mean, it's not a coincidence that there's less publications and
Mm,
from people in South America than people from the US, for example. No, it's just
right.
it's something that you don't learn very well at definitely not at school. Maybe not enough at university, but there is
Hmm.
a clear difference there. And in general, I find people from the US or Europe more direct
Hmm.
when they want to say things than people from South America. And
Mhm.
I cannot pinpoint what is the exact difference, but for example, for South Americans, I find that it's very hard. Maybe I shouldn't generalize, but for me, it's very hard to say no. But I know I have observed Jeff, for example, and other colleagues that it's okay to say no sometimes. You know,
Right.
you
Right.
shouldn't feel guilty. But I
Yeah,
think for
you're
me,
trying to
it's
lessen the harshness of just saying no and just be like, well, maybe not today, maybe later on or something like that. And here you are being like other people saying, no, we can't do that right now. Is that what you mean?
right. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
totally
I
get it.
have, well,
yeah.
I have to
Yeah,
say
but
you have a very impressive publication record. So I don't think, for you at least, it's not being in Latin America is not an issue because
mhm.
you publish more than people do an entire career in the U.S. With looking over your resume. So you have nothing to be ashamed of there. You're extremely prolific. Um, I definitely
No,
attest to
thank you
that.
so much. But no, I mean, I have had wonderful colleagues, but it's a learning process. I mean, when I read a paper from, my early papers, when I read one now, it's very different. Of course, the vocabulary, but also the way of writing is very different. But I mean, it's a learning process, and I think I'm still learning. And it's cool to
Absolutely.
learn. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's you always. I think that's a good thing if you always look back and you're like you're right. You feel your writing's better now than it was 10 or 20 years ago. I'm the same way. I look at papers I did 30 years ago, and I'm like glad to see I've advanced some. I'd hate to think I'm still writing the way I did 30 years ago. I'd be really embarrassed about that. So,
You know,
um,
the other day, months ago, I have to find my thesis from licenciatura, which is a degree you get after you're done with your bachelor degree.
mhm.
And when I read it, it was a little bit embarrassed for me. But I thought, well, I was very young. So what? You know,
Yeah.
it's all
Well,
about learning.
it's not only this, it's not only with writing, it's the same thing with podcasting. I listened to my first podcast the other day and I was just like cringing. I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever, right? But you're right, you improve and you figure things out and you experiment, and that leads to growth. And some things work out, some things don't, but then you end up being better for it. So I think that's great. And obviously, as Dave says, you've written many publications, and it's great to be able to see that. And obviously, people accepted it for a reason, and because they're good, and I'm sure it's gotten better and better every time. So I don't think there's really any for any scientists, and both of you can probably attest to that because you've been doing this longer than I have. There's no real ceiling when it comes to writing in different formats, and writing scientific formats or writing for conservation formats, or reports or technical reports. It's always a learning process, especially when you have different editors and so forth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's something about writing that for some people it comes very natural. Like I observed Jeff, and I think he probably could write a book. I don't think I have that in me.
Hmm.
It takes a special skills. Like Dave, for example, how many books do you have, man? It's I
36, but
Yeah, it's
who's counting?
amazing.
36. Wow. Wow.
That's terrible. It was terrible. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
It's, it's
The only thing
amazing.
the only thing I say, I've done a few papers with you, just so people know. And I mean, you write very well. And the only thing, like the only real trick with the book is, and we've talked about this with some other people that have done books. We talked recently with Greg Scommel and Dean Grubbs, and if you can work with somebody who's done a book, and I was fortunate. My first book was with Leonard Capagna, who was my advisor, and
Mm.
once I saw how it was done, having some guidance
Mm.
from someone who was at that time, Leonard was very experienced at writing books, and once you kind of see how it's done, it's not as bad, it's not as complicated as you think. People think, oh, and I was the same way. I thought, oh my god, a book. But if you can write, and once you see how it's done, you'll be surprised how it's not as difficult as you think. It's a lot of time, a lot of hitting your head on the wall, but it's very much, but it's not as bad as you think. It's getting that first one done is the big trick. So I don't, maybe we'll have to put that in our list of collaborations to do a book together sometime. So
No, yeah, no, I admire you. I think it's amazing what you have done. I'll, if you ever do a course on writing, I will sign up. Definitely.
okay,
There you go,
I'll keep
Dave.
that in mind. There you go. Yeah,
There
there
you
you
go.
go.
Another thing to do.
I have to ask you how, because you publish a lot with your husband Jeff. How's that in the writing
Mhm.
process, working with your collaborator who you live under the same roof with? How's that go?
Well, you know what? He's one of these people that he could write a book. He's very good. He's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, oh my God, we have give him things that I am asking myself, is this publishable? Is this, can we make it? And he works his magic. He's very good at editing and, like making it flow and put it in a scientific
Mm-hmm.
format. No, he is, yeah, I'm glad he's my husband.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's great. That's terrific. I mean, I know we've had both Michelle Heipel and Colin Simpfendorfer on, their husband and wife, and they're
Hmm.
very prolific as well. And I just know how it is sometimes with co-authors. I just like kind of sometimes at the end of the day, I want to turn the computer off and just damn it, just like get I have to have vent a little bit sometimes, and I'm sure they do as well. So
Oh yeah.
I have to admire having to have a collaborator basically, that's a spouse. That's really good. Like I said, I don't know how Colin and Michelle do it, but they make it work really well. So that's amazing. So tell us about
Yeah, it's yeah,
yeah, go ahead. I say
go ahead.
you have your position now. Are you a lecturer, a professor now at the university in Lima? And how many students do you advise now? How many students do you advise?
Mm. Like right now, I probably have 5 students. They are all undergrad. Uh,
Oh, okay.
but it has challenges. It's not that easy. It's like having 5 kids. Uh,
All at once.
yeah, all at once, and some are really good. Some are, very. They have a good process. Others sometimes they disappear, and I just
Mm,
don't know how to get them back. And it's like, you have a really good thesis. This is a really good project. Now finish it up. Give me something. Give me a
right.
draft. It's really, it's very interesting. And every time I have a new student, I'm gonna learn a lot from that experience. Um, I enjoy it,
Hmm.
especially when they are at the last part and defending their thesis.
Mhm,
But it hasn't been, every student has been very different for me. Um,
mhm,
Most of them, I have to say, or all of them, are women.
Oh, cool.
mhm,
Yeah, I don't have any student that is. They are all girls,
Hmm.
and it has worked well so far. But some of them sometimes will disappear for a few months, and it's like
Hmm.
I have to be in the WhatsApp like the mom. Where are you?
And what's the um, can they do like a do you have graduate students? Do you have masters or PhD there as well?
No, well, not in Scientifica. In Scientifica, I only have undergrads. So the career is marine biology. It's the only university in Peru that has marine biology. Um,
Okay.
and typically in a class, there's going to be between 20 to 30, perhaps. That's the range. And we will have two regular semesters and a summer semester. The summer one is not every year, but lately has been every year. So every month we're teaching, except in or most of them will do their thesis in the area that I'm more connected to, because for me it will be more easy to coach them on how to get to certain port, or talk to certain group of fishermen, or work with certain fisheries. So some of them will go. We have a student that is works on swordfish, for example. She's been great. She had no known information for like 9 months. And then on month 10 and 11, she got a couple. But then she prepared survey, so it was like trying to piece out a thesis, and at the end is working okay. But it's the process that it's really cool to see a person that has never stepped a foot in a fishing port, and then all of a sudden feeling comfortable or getting invited to the fisherman's house. And we do a lot of work with outreach for fishermen, so teach them how to release the animals when they're alive, for example, turtles or seabirds, how to remove the hooks, or how to hold them, or how to check before you release a bird if it's floating in the water, or certain um, um, guidelines they will require to do it well. Because if they do it well, that animal is going to have more chance to survive. So it's very important for some species that are endangered. For example, the leatherback turtle. That animal is really in a bad number. I mean, very low numbers in the Eastern Pacific. So if they release one of those a year, that's fantastic. That's like a big thing. So we want to be able to provide that kind of training for them. Some other work is related to organizational, strengthen their organizations, like have them formalize to the authorities, like have their papers in order, have their IDs in order so they can go fishing. And I think that kind of work has been something we are learning, but it goes well with if you're working, if your plan is to work on sustainable fisheries, for example. It gives you a very nice baseline to get to know this fisherman group and them getting to know you and see if they are interested to work together.
So we've talked a lot about some of the different large marine fauna you've worked with and stuff. When did you kind of get interested in doing sharks? When did they kind of come into the picture?
Oh, I don't care much for sharks.
Uh-oh.
No, you have to
Okay,
edit that.
I don't
that's the end of
know.
that's the end of the interview. We're done.
No, well, no. Shark is very interesting because sometimes I find myself very confused. We have improved shark fisheries. The shark fisheries is legal. If you catch the shark at a certain size, at a certain time of year, when the seasons are open. There's not many seasons, but there's a for hammerheads at least there's a season. But then um, Peruvians we eat sharks and rays. We eat them as ceviche, for example. You can make a ceviche with shark meat.
Hmm.
You can make I know a stew of ray. I know it probably is not a thing for this interview,
Oh,
but
it's okay.
the reason it makes me confused. The reason it makes me confused sometimes to me is like there is these fisheries that are legal and people is some communities are heavily relying on shark fisheries, but yet the numbers are so bad. The populations are dropping like in a very sad way. Um, wh- what is happening? What is not? There's not a there's something missing there, and I think the reason is that there is not enough. Uh, Sharks are not a priority yet
Mm.
in Peru, unfortunately. And
Why do you think that
I
is?
wish I think because it has been Peru is a fishing nation. So
Mm.
when I mentioned earlier that we will eat, there's communities that eat dolphins or turtles. Is we
Right.
are heavily relying on these resources, but there is a thin line between relying on these resources and what can these resources take and what these resources can take is not much anymore. Maybe in the past it was okay, but not anymore. Sharks every time they're getting smaller and smaller. So it was obvious for us to start working and how we have to get numbers out. We have to build up a case, and I think that's what we are doing with several projects, trying to document that there's still these fisheries, but the sharks are too small.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable anymore. Maybe there's a couple of species that can cope with that, but I don't think that's going to be for long. We are too many people, and we can't sustain everything, unfortunately.
Is most of the shark and I assume ray meat, is it consumed in country or is it exported?
There is some export. There is export to, I think, Mexico, Costa Rica, and maybe that is going pretty direct
Hmm.
to other countries. You know, it's like another step within a big commerce. But a lot of it, I think the majority stays in the country.
Hmm.
The meat, all the
The meat
trunks
does.
probably is,
Hmm.
yeah, the meat
Uh,
does. There's some meat that is exported.
yeah,
Fins
but most
are definitely exported.
fins are exported. Yeah, yeah. Do you know much? I just saw I just saw like in the last few days before this interview that there was a paper came out about the sawfish used to be more common in northern Peru, but were probably harvested and they're no longer there. And even in Ecuador, they're very rare in Ecuador. But the article talked about how they use, and I know this where they use the teeth from the rostrum from the saw for cockfighting is what they use them for. And apparently
Hmm.
that's pretty big, and I didn't realize it was pretty big in Peru. A lot of the teeth from the saw, again, just so people understand, it's the rostrum, the saw, the teeth on the blades and the sides of those are actually used for cockfighting. And I know in Mexico it's big, it's really popular in Mexico. I didn't realize it was in Peru. Apparently they used to fish them in both Ecuador and northern Peru for the they use the spurs for the cockfighting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, um, it's true. I mean, look, in Peru, they still do these bullfights, which
Mm-hmm.
make no sense to me, but I guess certain part of the population still enjoy that kind of. I don't think it's. Are you there?
Yeah,
Yep.
no, here.
Still here.
Oh, I don't see you anymore. Yeah. I don't think it's I don't know if you can say it's a sport, but there's certain people that enjoy those things. Cockfight is another one. There's um, areas in Peru that raise the cocks, and actually in the north, I have seen some cages with the cocks,
Mm-hmm.
preparing them for these arenas. And I have never seen a sawfish, and I have been around for some time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't surprise me that that is the case. Maybe they were never in high numbers. I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that the people still use parts of animals for entertaining or medicine in other areas. Is I, I wish I could say that in 5 years there's not going to be more of those things, but I think it's going to take a little more time. And in places like Peru, for example, um,
Mm-hmm.
they will use turtle blood for medicine, for example. I have seen
Oh.
that. I have witnessed that, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
They use the feathers of albatrosses for fishing lures, because apparently it reflects when they're in the water. I mean, this kind of uses, it's very. I have to be. I try to be open to what other people enjoy or like, but I think it's not much of reasoning behind it. So it's hard sometimes to understand the other side.
I think some of those things have probably been handed down for generations, is why, and they just have persisted. It's all I don't, it's almost like a cultural type of thing. It's just persisted for years, and it's just because it's just passed down that nobody with modern technology, they never thought like, well, we can go out and develop lures doing something else. Um, like with the well, using the sawfish rostrum for sawfish teeth for. I mean, I don't know if anybody how familiar people are listening to the show with cockfights, but if you happen to want to Google this up on somewhere on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but brace yourself if you're not aware of what it involves. It's basically a couple of roosters that literally fight to the death to do and I didn't say they use those roster from the sawfish is what they put on those things to basically one will kill the other. And but it's again, I think it's things that have just passed down culturally that people just don't think change over time. That's just my own interpretation. Um, some of those things. But anyway, I was just kind of curious if you had much. Like I said, I just saw this paper recently on the on just another reason besides the fins, besides the meats on sawfish, why they're disappearing. And coastal fisheries, any particular species you're
Um, um, I think squatinas in general are of concern. There is heavy fisheries on angel sharks, and
mm-hmm,
I don't see that being that's going to be illegal locally um, anytime soon. It,
mm-hmm,
and it's really a, a, a worrisome what is going to happen. Also, the other side, thinking about the other side, is there's some communities that rely on the catch of angel sharks because they also use their eggs for to make some beverage that is energetic
oh,
apparently or for healthy reasons.
mm-hmm,
And I know, yeah. And so, what is going to happen if when they close that fishery? What is going to happen with this community? So I think for that, we should be better prepared. We should have a better plan to offer these communities
mm-hmm.
when the legislation come and act,
D-
and
d-
that these fisheries are not sustainable anymore, and
d-
eventually they're
does
going to have to close them.
does Peru have a national plan of action for sharks?
Yes, we do, um,
Okay.
but it's very. I mean, I think I hate to say it, but it's not very well implemented. It's very loose. Um,
Mm-hmm,
I think CITES has made more progress lately than that plan of action. CITES in
mm-hmm.
locally in Peru has
Size
promoted
locally.
more measures, yes,
Mm-hmm.
than the plan of action in Peru.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
the plan of action? Are the holes more in the enforcement of that plan?
In theory, yeah. In theory, the that plan, the entity that is responsible is the Ministry of Fisheries, and they should be doing the research, providing, doing outreach to in fisheries, perhaps looking at into options, looking at enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the case yet.
How,
Hmm.
now, and you're no
It has
with
to
your
be coming.
are you do you with you through your Pro Delphinus organization? Do you do a lot of outreach, educational stuff in these different communities?
Yes, we do. There are some. It used to be that most of the projects will have a research component and an educational component.
Mm-hmm,
So within the educational component, we will apply the knowledge we will got from research to pass it on and to
mm-hmm,
be make these communities aware of what we were doing, but also what we were finding. Like for example, the angel sharks. Look, the fishery is
mm-hmm,
getting less and less every year. The sizes are reducing. So um, just so you know, this is not going to be sustainable.
mm-hmm,
And the species is protected, is critically endangered, blah blah blah.
mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you don't have options, I'm thinking about these communities.
Yeah.
There is a lull moment. There's a like a, well, what am I gonna do? Just keep
Mm-hmm.
fishing. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
this. And for that, I think that's when we need bigger entities that come and say, do this, we are going to work with you to implement this strategy or this so on or this other thing. That is not happening yet.
Yeah. Well, what do you? What? Look, so this has been a fascinating interview, Joanna. What do you see? Like, if a young person came to you about wanting to pursue a career in this, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, right. I think if you mean if it's a biologist or something interested in research,
Yeah, just somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah, some
similar to
young.
like
Yeah.
somebody following your career path kind of thing.
I think volunteering helps to, uh, it could help you a lot in figuring out what you want to do, what are you good for, or what fields you want to improve if you want to do certain thing. I think also be in the shoes of the other side if you're trying to implement or get a job where you have to work with people. Try try to be in try to play the role of the other person before you impose your own views. That is very common that I will hear people saying, "No, fishermen are so bad." No, but these are people we depend on. I mean, most of the fish we eat in Peru, in the coast at least, come from these fisheries. So we want to make them sustainable if we want to keep eating and enjoying these delicious dishes. Another thing I think is it's important to listen and from experienced people. Every time you have the chance to hear from somebody what their life journey has been on, their career mistakes or lessons learned or
Hmm.
fun moments, that's also very important. And I have two two kids, and it's hard for them to listen to adults. They don't want to hear to listen to adults, but sometimes it's I have learned a lot from listening to people with much more experience than me,
I,
and I think
I was
that's
gonna,
Hmm.
I was
something
gonna,
useful.
I was just going to say, despite all of your other amazing accomplishments, you've also raised two sons as well, and that's even which is probably your best accomplishment. So, uh, raising them, raising these young boys like that. Uh, so,
That has been fun. Has been fun to raise these two.
Are they
and you got to
also in the marine biology field, or have they pursued a different a
Zero.
different zero?
Yeah, no, they like um they enjoy looking at like
Hmm.
wild animals or nature, but they are not into biology or oceans that so
Right.
much. But yeah, they enjoy their animals.
yeah.
Nice. Good.
Well,
I'm
it's
sure they
good,
know a
good,
lot more
good.
than they would if they didn't have parents who were marine biologists, right?
I don't know.
Uh, well, Joanna, this has been an incredible interview. I knew it would be an amazing interview to have you on for this show, and I've been wanting to get you on, and it surely has was a terrific time we've had with you here, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're up in northern Peru right now,
Absolutely.
actually doing your thing with the communities, and I want to thank you very much, and we'll look forward to hopefully have you on again here sometime. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Dave, thank you for the invitation. Andrew, thank you for facilitating this. This is,
Of course.
um, I think, my first podcast,
Oh, well,
and
definitely not the
and
last because we'll have you
maybe
on
the
again.
last,
No, no,
maybe the
no. We'll
last. I
have
was
you on
gonna say,
again.
Definitely not. Definitely
but
not.
thank you so much. Thank you for
You
to
bet.
both of you.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate it. And we'll definitely would love to have you back on sometime soon.
Sure. Yes. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for
Yes.
having me.